Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody. This is Stephanie Rizk. I'm the Director of Online Professional Development at NASPA, and I am joined today by my colleague Lisa, who I will let introduce herself for a second.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Endersby, and I am currently the National Chair of the NASPA Technology Knowledge Community, and I am also honored to be the Technology and Student Affairs Consultant for the upcoming NASPA Techne Conference.
Okay, so that was super quick.
Sorry.
So we are, that's all right. We are here today to answer some questions. We've been getting lots and lots of questions over the past couple weeks since we launched Techne on what it is and who belongs there and what it's about. So we thought we'd put on this hangout, let everybody hear from us directly, the planners of this thing, what's going on with it, give some of that information in an audio way, for one thing, with our faces, make it a little bit more interesting. Because as you probably have seen, the web page that we have is really, really long and there's lots of words on there. So we thought this could be a good sort of quick fact sheet about what's going on with Techne. So I'm going to start talking about what's different about Techne and what it actually is. So lots of folks that have been around NASPA a really long time would automatically know what the structure of our conferences are, what our institutes are like, what the annual conference is like. Techne is a little bit of a hybrid mishmash of the best of those sorts of things. We wanted to take a little bit longer length of time to allow people to actually have time to make an impact, implement something, try it, come back, and still have that expert group accessible to them. For adult learners, it's really, really difficult for them to get that sort of fire hose of information and actually implement it without some ongoing support. So Techne is, for one thing, about 4.5 months long in total. The online learning community that is created during Techne will last for as long as it will last after that. So you really get that extra time to fit this into your schedule and take advantage of that just-in-time learning theory that really works for adult professionals. So as I mentioned, we've got online programming, we've got in-person programming. The vision is that our online programming, which will start on August 19th no matter what, will actually have about 16 to 20 hours of structured learning throughout that 4.5 months that is online. So we're talking about 1-hour sessions, half-hour sessions, live chats online with experts, industry engagement sessions online, all of that. We want to give you 16 to 20 hours of that structurally. However, the platform gives you a lot of tools to enhance that 16 to 20 hours to whatever you can stand doing it. You can also sort of delve in on certain threads. So if you're really interested in data analysis and mining and big data, you can kind of go down that thread and have a nice substantial chunk of learning to do that with. If it's social media, if it's new platforms especially, which is one thing we're focusing on, you can do that. If it's mobile apps, if it's safety and security, if it's security and privacy as far as technology information goes, you can kind of go down all those little paths of where you feel like you're a little bit behind and bring yourself a level up. The in-person centerpiece event is scheduled for October 15th through 17th. It's going to be happening at the conference center, the Marriott, I'm going to get it wrong, the Marriott Conference Center at the University of Maryland. It's got an official name. So it's right outside of DC. And we're really looking for that event to be a network creation event first and foremost. So we want to make sure people are getting to know each other, that they're making contacts that they need to support them as they move forward in building these skills. We will have a fair amount of industry engagement, both online and in person at this event. The reason for that is almost every campus is using third-party vendors for a good amount of the work that they're doing. Even the IT departments themselves are using third-party vendors for parts of their real technical stuff that's going on. The third-party vendors, the tech industry has for a very, very long time been led by those folks, led by small startups. They think of the great idea and get bought by somebody, but they're the folks that are driving where the industry goes, where the money is going. The venture capitalists are dictating that through those small startups. So we feel like there's no way that we can ignore them or have them really as a sideshow in this event. They have to be part of it. They have to help us give you guys the skills that you need to be more efficient and serve your missions better. Another way that Techne is a little bit different from some of our other events is we're really focused on training and teaching, and very little on this sort of dog and pony show. So I don't, or we don't want you to come there and just hear about lots of things. We actually want you to learn about lots of things and feel like, okay, I can do this. I can, think about this. I can come back to the community, find that presenter again, and be like, okay, what's the next step for this? I can connect with a colleague who's going to do the same thing. What's the next step for this? I ran into this. What's going on? So we really want that learning to happen beyond the sort of now I know about this thing. And the other sort of impetus for Techne was really that it's time. The tech competency is very likely going to be passed at the very beginning of August by both the boards of NASPA and ACPA. The tech competency is in there. It's not disappearing from there, no matter how much they ask for revisions. And if you haven't had a chance to read that draft, you can find it, I think, on both organizations' websites. And we can send out a link for you guys as well. There are some really aspirational goals, I would say, in those competencies. And I think it would be tough. And this is certainly a conversation we're going to be having as part of Techne. How do you achieve them? How do you implement them? How do you know your staff is achieving them? If you're not familiar with them yourself. And they're very broad, and they've got some great stuff in there for us to strive towards. But I think everyone will find one or two that they're not up on. And this is the kind of event that will help you get there. So that's really what's different about Techne. Lisa, what did I miss?
I think you covered all of it. What I'll say in addition to that, though, is what we're really focused on is making sure that the learning that happens comes from a variety of different places. So as Stephanie was mentioning, and I absolutely agree, and it's something that I was really excited about when I came on board for this project, is that it's not just, as she mentioned, the dog and pony show. We don't just want you to be sitting in a room hearing about technology or hearing about technology in student affairs and higher education. As Stephanie also mentioned, it's time. You've heard about it enough. We've talked about it enough. We're going to keep talking about it, but we want to be able to do something about it and do something with it. So one thing that we're doing is really looking at different ways in which you can learn about the technology competency and learn how to use the competency in a way that's going to make sense for you and the work that you're doing, where you're at in your profession, where you work, what context you work in. Of course, it's going to be a little more international because we have some Canadians who are also going to be bringing ourselves and our own context into the conversation, and some of that will look different. But we really want to look at different ways, places, and people that you can learn from, with, and about. So on my end, a lot of what I'm focusing on right now is that peer-to-peer learning. So as Stephanie mentioned, a lot of that online content is going to start up in August, and what that's going to look like is some peer-to-peer, peer-led conversations about the competency. And we've got 4 of those different live briefings talking about the 3 different levels of the technology competency, and then some overall discussion where we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the need for the competency, what it can look like now, and what it might look like in the future. And those live briefings are going to be led by your colleagues, your peers. So I'm working with a great team, a lot of people that you'll see come up. I'm not going to give any spoilers now, I guess, because we're still working on figuring all of that out. But we've got some great people on board. We've got their Twitter handles. We've got their emails. And we're doing some discussions now about, for example, if you are a professional who's new to student affairs, let's say, or new to higher education, where might you fit in the basic level of the technology competency? Are you already at the basic level? Do you think you might be at the more advanced level? There's no right or wrong answer, but we want to help you get to the level that makes sense for you. And by doing so, we want to help you think about how can you achieve that level of competency and how can you help others achieve it. So we're going to do that as in a discussion. We're going to give you some opportunities to hear from people at different levels of the technology competency, at different levels in their professional careers, or different points, I should say, in their professional careers. No, again, none is better than the other. But then that should be a nice lead into, okay, now that we know where you might be at or where you want to be, here are some skills that will help you get there.
Right. So new skills definitely is something we hope that you'll get out of Techne. The sort of equally important component is this long-lasting and useful network of colleagues. So this is something that NASPA hasn't done a lot of in the past, to build a sort of online learning community around a face-to-face event. And this community actually we will be supporting that community building process pretty heavily. So what does that mean? That means that I'm going to be pressing on people to make sure that their profile picture is not the default one in the system, and I'm going to make sure you introduce each other. But we're also going to have some volunteers helping people make the connections that they need to. So, NASPA is going to know who you are, obviously, by your membership information and that sort of thing. So we're going to try to seek out, okay, we've got 5 people or 10 people that are all working in community colleges in the Northeast. So we're going to help you guys get together, create a network of something that can last far beyond and outside of Techne on all those things. And that's one of the sort of side effects that I'm going to be able to use this platform to create those communities. And it's not going to be something that NASPA can stop me from doing. It's going to be something that's part and parcel of how this community works. The other angle of what you can get out of NASPA Techne is a real chance to sort of face your fears, get a little bit of exposure therapy on something about technology that you're maybe feeling slightly embarrassed that you're behind on, something that you've put on the back burner for too long and now you feel like you're so far behind you'll never catch up. Something that has trend-wise come upon the higher ed space. You kind of missed the beginning of it and now you don't even know who to ask, where to start, that sort of thing. We want to be that very welcoming, very accommodating space where it's okay to say, here are my challenge areas. Help me find somebody that can help me with this. Here are my strength areas. Put me on the list of people that need help with this. So that sort of connection thing, but also non-intimidating atmosphere is something we're really looking for. And we hope that creates the real change that we're looking for. This is a revolution and you're going to be a part of it. So how can you be a part of it? Let's talk about that for sort of a moment, the nuts and bolts of it. Obviously, you can register. We have a couple different registration options for you. The first one is to register for the whole shebang. So your end-to-end online and in-person opportunities. This includes that 16 to 20 hours of online programming that I talked about, the online learning community, any industry engagement enhancements that I can't really talk about yet because they're not finalized. Those will be part of that whole shebang option. And then the in-person event in College Park in October. We do have a virtual only option. So this, I think on the website, it's called the full virtual experience. This gets you access to the online community, that 16 to 20 hours of formal programming. Some of the industry engagement will be happening online. It really depends on the vendor at that point. But you won't necessarily have access to the in-person event stuff. We don't really have the budget to sort of live stream and record everything that's happening in person. So we're going to do our best with some experimental methods there, but I'm not going to promise that it'll all get recorded and included there. We also do have, and this just launched today on the website, the 4 live briefings on the competency that Lisa mentioned. We are going to offer those a la carte, so you can buy those for a price by themselves. It's not the best value if you do the math, but if it's something that you can really stomach and that's it, certainly you should go for it. So there's a separate registration if you just want those 4 briefings. You won't be in the Techne online learning community as if you buy it that way, but you will have access to the recordings and things like that. So that's another option. All different price points. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can get on the website and see what they are and see what sort of works for you. After that sort of registration portion, we do have a lot of volunteer opportunities. Obviously, networking is a theme here. So we will have online and on-site volunteer opportunities. What that would look like online is essentially what we call like an assistant community manager. So in order for us to really create these connections and networks, to invigorate discussions and help people compensate for the fact that we all have busy lives and we lose threads now and then, they'll be the people who'll be watching discussions, moderating things, connecting people when things come up, and sort of be that overseer of how the community's developing and help it grow and nurture it along the way. On site, we have sort of the much more normal volunteer opportunities, checking people in, facilitating discussions. We have an opening reception. We'll have some volunteer opportunities for that. And who knows what else I'll come up with. We do have an option during registration if you're going to the face-to-face event to be a Google Hangout ambassador. This is an experiment that we're all just asking people to go with us on. What we'd like to do is have some attendees at the face-to-face event volunteer to Google Hangout with someone, be paired with someone and Google Hangout with them during certain sessions of the live event so that they don't miss it. And the ambassador agrees to ask their questions of the presenters, and even set up coffee chats with other people on Google Hangout. The sort of reward for being a Google Hangout ambassador is that I'm going to give you access to a wireless network that no one else gets access to, so you get better reception. And then you and your partner will have good connections along the way. So we're hoping that that's a way we can sort of allow for virtual attendees at the live event without breaking the bank there. We do need program reviewers for our programs. We've got 3 types of programs in the face-to-face event and all sorts of things probably happening online. And we will need help giving feedback to those program presenters on their programs, and then facilitating and moderating discussion. So if there's something you're just itching to talk to people about, but it's not necessarily a session, it's not necessarily something that you want to get up and present for 30 minutes on or anything like that. If you just want to be talking with people about that, for example, if you just want to talk to people about the competency and, how do you implement this because you work in academic advising. If you want to volunteer to sort of lead a discussion in that way, we'd love to hear from you, and I can make sure you get oriented to the platform well enough that you can do that. So there's lots and lots of that going on. And obviously presentations, the call for programs is open. We're using the same system as NASPA is used for anything else because it's there. And you can present online, you can present in person. We do have 2 pre-cons, and I'll let Lisa talk about the topics for those. We know what we want. We're looking for more presenters, more facilitators. It's really a discussion in some cases. So I'll let Lisa talk about that.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about the overall idea for our presentations and what we're hoping to do at the actual in-person event as well as the pre-conferences. So if you're looking at the call for programs, you'll probably notice it's a little bit different than some things that NASPA's done in the past. So for example, a lot of you have probably submitted and or presented a program at the annual conference. And that's very much stand up, present. We ask you for a particular set of information, learning outcomes, what you hope to share, what sort of literature informs your presentation, all of those things. We're going to be looking for something similar for Techne, but we're also flipping it around a little bit to really be in line with what we've already been talking about. We want this to be more of a teaching and discussion and conversation and facilitation opportunity and less of a lecture and presentation opportunity. So you'll notice, for example, that we have something called facilitator-led or practitioner-led sessions. And practitioner-led sessions are meant to be really about skill development. So you will still be presenting on a particular topic. You'll still be talking about privacy, for example, or you might still want to talk about IT and how it's used in student affairs. But we want it not just to be the why. We really want you to dig into the how. We want you to dig into the what, the who, the where, all of those other W's in the W5H. We want you to start thinking about how can I share my knowledge about either my experience, my expertise, things I've done in the past, things that might have worked and might have didn't work, and how can I teach other people, not necessarily to avoid my mistakes, but just to be in a place where they feel comfortable and competent to do similar work that you've done. Which also leads me nicely into, we also are looking for case studies. So we're looking for a presentation or a session that's not just built around a topic, but is built around a real-life example. So this could be a particular problem related to technology in higher education, student affairs, that you have already solved, so to speak, or it could be something that you're going through right now. But we want to give you an opportunity to really frame this around something that's going to be actually contextually relevant and meaningful. So one challenge sometimes when people go to conferences is it's really hard to pick sessions to go to because the topic is either really broad or not necessarily applicable to your work, but it might be, or it could be, or if it is, if I turn this around and squint a little and maybe it looks like something I might be interested in. We want you to bring to the table, here's something that I'm working on right now or I have worked on. So instead of leading with the topic, we're almost leading with an opportunity, if you will. Here's an opportunity to fill in a gap that might be missing, whether it's knowledge, whether it's a skill, something related to the competency. So come to us with a case study, and we'll hopefully give you the opportunity to actually talk through that case study with colleagues, either to get advice about how to work on that challenge or that problem, or you can actually be the one teaching other people based on your experience. So as Stephanie was also talking about, overarching all of that, as you can tell, she and I have been quite busy thinking about a lot of different things. we are still going to do the more traditional pre-conference model that you've seen in a lot of the different conferences that NASPA does. The difference here, we were really intentional about what topics will make sense as a pre-conference versus other areas of Techne. So as you know, pre-conferences are usually a little bit deeper because we have more time. We want to dig a little deeper into that particular topic. We might want to do a little bit more skill development just because we have the time and space to do it. So we've got 2 pre-conferences that we're working on, and I'm going to give a shout out to Junior and to Kelly, who have been working with us really, really hard around the actual outline for these sessions. So Stephanie mentioned we do have some ideas in mind of what we're looking for. We need someone like you to help us bring it to life. So we have 2 pre-conference sessions that we're planning. One is around universal design. So that's looking around universal design related to programming. That's looking around universal design and ideally how technology can support the development and ongoing maintenance of universal design in the programs and the services that we run. The other topic is something that we actually haven't talked a lot about, but of course is relevant to Techne, and that's social media. Now, I say that because we want to make sure it's talked about in Techne, but we're also really broadening Techne so it's not just social media. I've probably talked about this. You've probably heard Stephanie talk about this in many other iterations. Technology does not equal social media. It's part of it, but it's not the only thing. So we want to give it a space. We want to make sure it is talked about because there are lots of new platforms coming up. There are lots of new opportunities for social media to inform the work that you do. And there are a lot of you who are already using it really well. The difference is we want to put it in the pre-conference. There's an opportunity to talk about it, but we also leave space in Techne to talk about all of the other things technology can do for higher education and student affairs. So the social media pre-conference will be a little bit more around not just things like Twitter and Facebook, though we can touch on them, and we probably will, but we also want to look at new platforms. What are the new emerging hot topics, hot trends, hot apps coming out in social media, and how might we be able to use those in our practice? So if that's interesting to you at all, if you've got some ideas around, I'd love to facilitate that, I know someone who would love to facilitate that, or there's a gap in there that I'd love to see you include in those pre-conferences, let Stephanie or I know. As I said, we've got some great outlines put together, but we're certainly open to feedback, and we know that feedback is going to help when we actually start putting this together. So if you're interested in facilitating, we are looking for 2 or more presenters for each of those who are interested in actually facilitating the pre-conference. They're about 2.5, 3 hours long each, and they will be part of the in-person event in that place that Stephanie mentioned that's got many different names, but it's basically in College Park, Maryland. So it's over there. But we will require you to be there in person, though we're also open to having some additional facilitators who are willing to do what we're doing right now, for example, and co-facilitate virtually. So let us know if you're interested. We'd love to have you on board. We've got great ideas up here and in here. I'm pointing at my Google Docs in here. So we'd love to have you bring those to life. It's time for some great ideas and new perspectives, and we think you're the people to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so I should have mentioned probably earlier, we've got this Q&A widget live and open. You can certainly feel free to send those questions in, although Lisa and I are also available via email. If you can't find my email address, I mean, I'm on the website, so, and I have a really weird last name. Everyone should be able to find me. We are certainly happy to have a chat with anybody via email or phone about this event. So that brings us around. We don't want to take too much of everyone's time on this info session here, but we did want to address probably one of the most important questions that we've been getting, and one of the ones that really cuts to the heart of the matter is, am I the right attendee for Techne? Like, do I know enough about technology to even be here? Am I that kind of person? Is my department up to speed enough to even come? Are we going to benefit? That sort of strain of questioning. And the answer really is that almost none of us are tech savvy in all areas where we want to be. And some of us being, great at social media, some of us being great at business analysis, some of us getting data mining really well or big data, some at tech project management and detecting sort of like funny business or when a project's going to fall through the cracks, that kind of thing. We all have different strengths out there. However, just being good at 1 or 2 things in this arena probably isn't enough for a long and successful career in most any industry. So we believe that even if you've got some deficiencies or challenges, that Techne is the place where you can come and land it at the right spot and bring your tech skills up 1 level. So you shouldn't feel bad about being behind on anything, and you shouldn't feel bad that you're still using only Excel spreadsheets for registrations, or any of those things that we hear people talk about. It's not going to be exclusive at a skill level. We thought about some things that would help you have that conversation at your campus when you're talking about this. If you're the kind of if you sort of agree with these statements or have said them yourselves, that you don't know how to make sure your tech projects are done well or right. You don't know how to detect when, scope creep is happening and it's going to slow everything down. You don't know really what big data is supposed to do. You feel uncomfortable justifying your tech projects. You feel like you're fighting and fighting and fighting because you don't have a good way to analyze data and results in a way that makes sense to the people who are making the big decisions at the end. You feel like you put tech projects on the back burner just of that, innate procrastination we all have when it's something that you don't know where to start with. So you just put it off for a little while. If you ever say to your staff, can you social media this for me? We'd like to give you a little more details on that and how to analyze when that's going well. So, if you're behind on something and your staff is using Pinterest and Periscope and Vine and all these platforms, and you don't know how long it takes them to implement that or how they need to be evaluating the success of that activity. So you can say, you know what, you spent 10 hours on a Pinterest board for what people should pack for college. How do we know it worked? How do we know it was worth that 10 hours of time? Those are the kind of things we want to get down to. And so all of those levels would be useful and applicable. And I think it would make for a great conversation. We also, especially on the industry end of things, now I'll just name drop a few folks we've talked to who've been very receptive. We talked to Blue Labs Analytics. That is a company that was started by the folks who ran the 2 Obama campaigns and sort of changed how political organizing is really done because of big data, because of micro big data, actually. They're very interested in being part of Techne. We also talked to another organization called Full Measure, which uses predictive analytics to intervene with students when they're giving indications of falling behind in some factor. They have a really interesting model that was started by the folks who worked on Blackboard and Presidium, so folks that are very sort of into higher ed. And we've got 2 mobile app developers as well as some computer clubs at some universities that develop the apps for their universities. So we're getting sort of the student end of tech as well as the industry end of tech. So we're talking about a broad scope of factors, of sectors of the tech industry, but we're going to get right down to implementation with those folks, and they love that. They're very refreshed by the idea that they get to come and teach and explain why they design things that way instead of actually just demoing their products, which is the wrong place to start for half of us. Mm-hmm. So if any of that sounds like you, if any of that sounds interesting, if you don't agree with anything I've said, I'd love to hear from you and we can have a discussion about it. But hopefully you kind of see yourself in some place in Techne and be a part of this, what it will really be a big cultural shift for higher ed once we're all done with it. And then we can have another one next year and do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Stephanie, is a lot of people who I've spoken to who are asking about their program proposals, they often come to me or they email and say, is this techie enough for you? Or I have this idea, is this the right thing? And the fact that you are having these conversations on your campus, the fact that you are potentially struggling with these challenges, or the fact that you have done this type of work already means Techne is for you. Because most, if not all of you, have already been doing something related to technology and student affairs. You may not be doing it, at the super advanced level. You may have created a new way of tracking advising appointments online. You may have moved one step away from an Excel spreadsheet. That's what Techne is about. You may have started doing webinars using Google On Air like we are doing. That's techie and techie enough for Techne. So really what we're looking for is any sort of experience, expertise around using technology on campus, in higher education. Are you talking about it? Are you teaching about it? Are you learning about it? Are you sharing about it? Are you struggling with it? This is where you need to be. We're looking for teachers, but remember that teaching comes from experience. So if you're engaged in any of that activity at all, you probably have some insight, you probably have some hindsight, you probably have some challenges, you've got something to share and to teach. So I'm going to put it out there. If you're emailing me saying, is this techie enough for you? I'm going to tell you yes. The only thing that I'll tell you in more detail over email is how I think it might fit, whether I think it would be a deep dive session, a practitioner-led session, a case study, a pre-conference, something online versus in person. That's what I'm going to tell you about. So you'll fit. We're just going to find the best place for you to share your knowledge, share your ideas, and share your information. So yes, you're totally technical enough and you're techie enough. We're just going to find a place for you to share that with your colleagues.
Excellent. Okay, so we've taken up an awesome half hour of your day. I hope you loved it. And I think Lisa's wrapped it up really well for us that Techne is a place for everyone. And we are going to find a way to help you along in your professional development journey in this area. And we're really working hard to do that. So as we said, you can reach us online, check out the website. There's lots more to come. I'm sort of updating that page really, really frequently. So every time we get one little thing confirmed, I'm going to put it up there as fast as possible and keep everyone really, really in the loop and be as transparent about all that as possible. So
and you can
thanks, everybody.
Check us out on Twitter. Sorry, check us out on Twitter. The hashtag's underneath my picture there, underneath my name, hashtag 2015 NASPA Techne. We do answer questions on there. We do follow the conversation on there. If you have a question, I actually encourage you to share it publicly because that's where the dialogue happens. So you, of course, feel free to email, but if you've got a question about Techne or question about what we're up to, please feel free to share it so we can answer you, and not just answer you, but answer our colleagues as well. So hashtag 2015 NASPA Techne, we are on there as often as possible as well.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. This recording will be posted, and you'll be able to show it to other people as soon as we possibly can get it up there. I'm going to put it on the page. And we hope to hear from you, see you, connect with you as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.